Let's do Joe the Plumber. Enough waiting around. His real name is Samuel Joseph Wurzelbacher. And he's a real man from Ohio, a real American. He's 34 years old. He's a plumber. And he's thinking of buying the business that he works for. He says he's had conversations with the owner of the business about how to take it over. And he's concerned that he can't buy the business if Barack Obama raises taxes on him. That's the story we heard during the debate. And today, of course, reporters swamped Joe the Plumber. And he held basically a press conference in front of his house in Ohio. And he answered some questions. And now they have gone digging into his background and found all the things that we knew they were going to find about Joe the Plumber. I kind of feel bad for him. One, he doesn't have a plumbing license. That's a problem. He has to have one. He doesn't. So now the guy's going to get in trouble for no reason. Okay. Number two, he really doesn't like taxes. He's not kidding around. He didn't pay him. There's a tax lien on him. And so he owes back taxes, and now he's got to go pay that because the media went digging into his story. So he's in a world of trouble. But now let's get to the funny but relevant stuff. So Joe the Plumber making $250,000 going to get hurt by Obama's tax plan. Man, that's a rich plumber, right? Today on the campaign trail, Obama says, he's like, how many plumbers do you know that making over $250,000? That's exactly what I said in the play-by-play. I said, I don't believe it. I don't believe there are that many plumbers in the country making over $250,000 unless he actually is a business owner and he hires many different plumbers, in which he's actually in a different category. Turns out he doesn't own the business, and guess what? Of course he doesn't make $250,000. He's an unlicensed plumber in Ohio. And when you do the math on it, you know who gives him a bigger tax cut? You guessed it, Barack Obama. He would get more of a tax cut, Joe the Plumber would, under Barack Obama than John McCain. Oopsie doopsie. See, the McCain campaign is so negligent, man. They're so incompetent. Didn't you check that before you brought up Joe the Plumber as your main dude in the debate and you mentioned him 50 times? Time magazine quotes a focus group that laughed out loud every time McCain mentioned Joe the Plumber. That was the one that was 4-1, Republicans and independents outnumbering Democrats. And they're like, oh, here he goes again with Joe the Plumber. And they look at Joe the Plumber, turns out he's better off under Obama's tax plan, right? So they're like, well, how do you feel about that? He said, well, look, you know, I might be better off under Obama's plan, but I'm concerned about other people, too. He's concerned about the rich. So, hey, God bless Joe. And I kind of like Joe in a lot of ways. He didn't ask for this, right? And he's a guy who went to a rally and asked Obama a question. He's a Republican, but hey, you get to be a Republican in the country. He hasn't said anything that particularly loathsome. I know during the press conference today he said like that Social Security is ridiculous and et cetera, and he's a Republican. He came out with a bunch of different Republican things that don't make sense to me. But he's at the end I kind of liked him because one, he wouldn't say who he's going to vote for. He's like, look, we have a secret battle in this country that's between me and the button. I like that. Even though it's obvious he's going to vote for McCain, but that's okay. I like he didn't say it. And number two, he said, look, at the end, I hope I didn't make a fool of myself. And you kind of want to say, Joe the Plumber, you're all right. You're all right. Now go pay your tax lien. Right? So he says, well, you know, I don't want to spread the wealth, so I want the rich to keep their money, etc. But let's go to the real heart of it here. Because Joe said in the beginning, and that's why this whole thing got created in the first place, you know, I'm not sure I could buy that business because of Obama's tax plan. I don't know if I can afford it. So I was waiting for this analysis, dying for it, because I said, I don't think that makes any sense at all. So under the Obama's tax plan, if he were to buy the business, if he were to buy it and get enough money, and the business were to make over $250,000, yes, his taxes would go, the taxes for the business would go up from 36 to 39%. Okay? So it would increase 3%. Now, Joe, you're telling me that you're thinking of not buying the business because if after owning the business you're making over $250,000, then your taxes would go up by an additional 3%, and that's why you're thinking of not buying it? Come on! That's not true. That's not true at all. In fact, if somebody gave you the business, you'd take it in a second. And then you worry about that extra 3% you're going to pay later when you're already making $250,000. That ain't even close to true. See, when you break down these Republican, talking points, always, they never make sense. Always run into a brick wall. Oh, because of 3% I might make later when I'm a quarter millionaire. Well, then, you know what? Forget it. I don't want it after all. I'll stay an unlicensed plumber. That's not going to happen, Joe. That's not going to happen. All right. So there's the story, the backstory of Joe the Plumber, and he's got his 15 seconds of fame. And I both feel good for him and feel kind of bad for him at the same time. There he is. Ah, Joey. Watsabaka. That's our American from Ohio.